Hey guys, this is Joel with Quarantine Marine, coming at you again from my home here in Florida with my, you're looking at my personal display tank. It's a 300-gallon tank that we are running hyposalinity on as a treatment for what we think might be flukes. You can go back and watch the first video if you want to see the history on, how we got here, but we're hoping that this hyposalinity treatment will take care of whatever it is that's uh, affecting these fish, which again, we believe is flukes. That's why we're doing this. Um, and so where we stand right now is about 48 hours ago, I started lowering the salinity in this tank. It started at about 1.020 because again, I don't have, I just set this tank up and I don't have any corals or inverts in here yet. So I had the tank at a little bit lower salinity. It's actually supposed to help the bacterial populations as well. I guess they replicate faster and better under a lower salinity. And it's also, the fish actually appreciate it too, because they spend a lot of their time and energy trying to regulate the osmotic balance between the inside of their bodies and their outside environment. And so that's actually one of the reasons that fish tolerate a hyposalinity treatment pretty well, because it's actually a less stressful, it can be a less stressful environment for them to be in, because they're not having to expend so much energy maintaining that osmotic balance between the salt water outside and the inside organs and whatnot. So as you can see right here, the fish all seem to be doing just fine. They're all swimming around, they're happy, they've been eating, they're basically acting normal. And even though they've been at what we would consider to be a hyposalinity for the last 12 hours or so, or more really, but for the last 12 hours, they've been at about 1.012. And right now we're at about 1.011. And I just drained some more water out and I'm replacing it now. So I'm hoping that we're gonna get down to that 1.009 level with this last water replacement. And that's going to be our therapeutic level where we're going to keep them for the next at least a week and probably longer. We'll probably extend it out 30 to 45 days just to see, or just to make sure that if there is ick in the tank, for instance, I don't necessarily suspect that, but there is a possibility of it in there. It's not really clear how it would have got in there. I'm very careful with that, and I've never had an issue with ick or velvet getting through a quarantine or cross-contaminating in the past, but it is possible. Again, I think unlikely, but it is possible. So anyway, we'll see what these fish look like in the next few days, and if we see signs of anything like that, then we might just run it out. And again, this tank was just recently set up, so I'm in this position where I can run hypo and I can actually run it for the full 30 to 45 days. And yes, it's going to delay, me getting corals and things like that in the tank, but it's only an extra few weeks. And in the broad scheme of things, this tank's probably going to be set up here. We just moved into this house and we don't intend on moving anytime soon. The last house we lived in was our starter home and we lived there for 15 years. So chances are this tank's going to be here for many years to come. So if we're talking about a few weeks of inconvenience, it's really not a big deal in the broad scheme of things. And that's kind of how we have to look at this hobby. I think a lot of us try to rush things because, of course, I'd love to have corals in here and make this tank really look really nice as opposed to these dead white rocks. But it's sometimes that patience is going to pay off over in the long run, because a couple of years from now, I'm not going to really remember the few days or few weeks I had to go extra without any corals and things. Instead, I'm going to be very happy with the fact that I have healthy, disease-free fish and, a good environment for the corals to thrive in. Because again, it's also not that great of an idea to add corals as quickly with a new tank anyway. And I know some of you would probably advise against that, but I'm not adding anything that's going to be a difficult coral. I'm not adding any SPS or anything like that. No stony corals to this tank. It's gonna be a softy tank with pretty much, I think it's just gonna be all mushrooms, to be honest with you. So I think those corals will probably do fine in here without a, 6-month wait time or something like that. So, so that's where we are right now. I'm gonna get in here and try to take a look at the fish again to see how they're looking today. They kind of look the same from the other day. They don't really look any better or any worse. Try to get the Hyniacus, because I know that's the one that you can see it the best on. If you look at his pectoral fins and also his tail fin there, I know it's hard to see, but there are some semi-transparent spots that look to be flukes, and they're on the powder blue, and basically, like I said, they're on all the tains and the angel. The scope is tained. You can probably see them there on the pectoral fins. The Tomini, same thing. The clowns all seem to be unaffected by this, which makes us kind of think that we're not dealing with brook, so that's a good thing. Hopefully it stays that way and we don't see something later on that makes us think that it might be brook. But down there, that little clown, kind of a funny story. This morning when I was draining some of the water out of this tank to try to again get that salinity down, I put a vinyl tube up here on the top left corner, and I clamp it up there, and then I run it to the kitchen sink right here. And I was standing over there by the sink when suddenly the clown, that small clown, got a little too close to the hose, and he went for a ride through the hose. So luckily he seems to be pretty much unaffected and unscathed, but we'll keep an eye on him to make sure that he's all right. I put him right back in the tank because like I said, he seemed to be okay. He was flopping around in my hand when he came out of the hose. So that is pretty much it. Oh yeah, one last thing. I mentioned in the first video that we were going to be monitoring the pH, because that is something to keep in mind when you're doing a hyposalinity treatment. And as you take out the salt from the water, the pH tends to get more neutral, because fresh water is basically going to be neutral pH. So as you remove the salt, the pH is going to drop. And I tested it this morning. We're at 7.94, which is perfect. So I'm not going to do anything with the pH right now. Like I think I've mentioned, the tank's been at about 1.012 salinity for the last 12 hours or so, and we're getting it down to 1.009. But if the pH starts to drop below the mid sevens, then I'm going to start dosing the tank with the baking soda that's been baked in the oven. You guys can look up that process. I actually need to do a little bit more research on it myself, but it seems relatively simple. You just bake the baking soda on a cookie sheet. I think it's for like an hour at 350 in the oven, and then you dose that to the tank, and it actually it'll raise the pH. So that is it, I think, for today. I will check back in with you guys in about another 48 hours or so, and hopefully, maybe we'll start to see some improvement in these symptoms. Oh, the Hyniacus just had to defend himself against the powder blue, it looks like. But yeah, that's it, guys. So stay tuned for more. Thanks.